Welcome to Story Chats at Inspi Romance. I'm Elizabeth Madry, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
And Valerie Comer.
Today, we're talking about books about bookish people. So characters who are bookstore owners or librarians or just big bibliophiles in one way or another. I sort of... It's broad. It's a broad category. And maybe we need to narrow it down somehow so that the bookishness of the character relates to the plot or their identity, something like that. More than just like somebody who reads. I don't know. But what do you think about that, Valerie? Or are there other requirements that you feel like we need to add?
Well, when I started thinking about this episode and thinking about books, I decided that I was looking for characters who make a living from books.
Okay.
So whether they would be librarians or bookstore owners or editors or authors or possibly somebody that I haven't thought of yet, but it's not just a hobby for them.
Okay, I like that.
And it needs to matter to the story.
Sure. Narelle, what about you?
Well, I just probably took the broad approach as well. And pretty much anyone who's sort of got a job connected to the bookish world, whether that's a bookstore or an author or publishing or libraries. So someone that's got a passion for books of some description, not just a reader, because otherwise we'd all be talking about ourselves.
True.
My characters do tend to like to read. Quite a few of them do, even though that might not be a big part of their story.
Yeah,
I do that too. It's like, oh, it's time for her to curl up and read. We're going to leave her alone doing that now.
Perfect.
All right. So other than that, I didn't come up with a whole lot of questions of what are we supposed to talk about before this? I don't know. So I didn't have anything else unless you guys have another topic that you wanted to throw out there to talk about before we jump into books. Anybody? No.
Sure.
Yay.
The whole aspect of fiction about authors, this has always seemed a little bit strange to me. I guess I figure I lead a really boring life. So I'm not sure how I would create a hero or heroine around what I do every day. I mean, I sit there and I think and I type and then I go for a walk so that my butt doesn't grow 3 sizes every week. And it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of scope in that. So I found it interesting really thinking about some of the books that I've read about authors and whether or not they, or how not their lives look anything like what I see as a typical author life. So I was trying to really gear for books that weren't about authors, but there's a lot of books about authors. So obviously not everyone hesitates to write them as I do.
Yeah.
I think there's lots of scope to do episodes. You could focus just on librarians, just on bookstores, just on authors. There's lots of scope, I think, to narrow it down, but not for today.
Yeah, maybe another time. We'll deal those out later in the year.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Then let's dive in. We're going to dive into books. I'm going to go first. So my first book is The Words Between Us by Erin Bartels. It might be a little more women's fiction-y. It does have romance, but it probably is a little more women's fiction-y than pure romance. But the books and the love of books and the sharing of the love of books is such an integral part of the story that when we talked about doing, books about bookish people, this was the very first thing that came to my mind. And if you've ever seen the cover, it's the bottoms of books all stacked on top of each other. I mean, it sort of quintessentially represents exactly what we're going for. And so it's Robin and Peter who have sort of hard times in high school, and they find solace in books that they pass back and forth to one another, and then they lose contact. There's some spoilery drama, so I won't get into that, but it's high school, right? So there's drama, of course. And so Robin has a failing now as an adult, a failing bookstore, and she begins to get these books in the mail. And so she's not, they're first editions, they're valuable, and she doesn't know really why is, what's going on? Is he back in her life and that sort of thing? And so there's a lot of flashbacks in the book, which I don't always love, but I thought it was handled well in this one. And it was an enjoyable read that I just felt like I literally... I couldn't not put it on there because it was the first book that came to mind. I was like, I have to talk about this book.
Who was the author again?
Erin Bartels, Erin.
I haven't heard of that. I don't think I've seen that book. So yeah, sounds interesting.
It does not have a super strong faith arc. I think it is put out by Bethany. It is a Christian publisher, but it is light on the faith elements of it. But I mean, sometimes that happens. So,
yeah.
All right, Valerie, what's your first book?
The first book that came to my mind was Leaving Liberty by Mary Jane Hathaway. I think it might have been the very first book of hers that I ever read. And Daisy left Liberty, Colorado after high school and never looked back until, of course, there's always an until, right? Until the librarian who had been the town bright spot and her own bright spot as a child and teenager, until the librarian passed away, and Daisy returns to pay her respects. And she discovers that the town's Carnegie Library is falling down, and the town can't afford to rebuild it. And she's like, this cannot happen. I'm going to save the library. And so she gets in there and she starts doing that while falling for the town cop, Lane, who was also a library kid lover as a youth. So, they team up to save the library. So there you've got your basic story arc, but it ticks the boxes totally in that without the library and their love of books, there would be no story at all.
Cool. All right, Narelle, what you got?
Well, I tried to think about bookish characters, and then I think do you have Book Week over in North America? No. Where everyone dresses up? Oh, it's a really fun thing. So one of the things that happens, it's a big deal. If you've got school-age children in Australia, you know all about this. And it's a week where you basically dress up as your favorite fictional characters. And it's a big deal in the stores, and people in the stores will dress up, and it's super fun. So that would, of course, there's no book set in Book Week, but anyway, that's beside the point. But the character in the book I'm going to talk about Liwen Waiho's At First Spark, which is the fourth book in the Spark Brothers series. And Danica, who she owns an independent bookstore, and she's a really bookish person. She actually has these navy leggings that have like these bright, colorful books on them. So as far as I'm concerned, she gets a big tick in the box for being a bookish person if she's wearing leggings with books on them. Has a passion.
For sure.
Yeah.
So she's a really fun character. And so Darren is the Sparks brother in this book, and he's a firefighter and EMT. And I think we have talked about this book in this podcast before. This is the one where he has a medical condition, which means that he may not be able to have children. And so he was jilted basically by his ex-fiancée. And pretty much the main reason they broke up was that she just couldn't deal with the fact that he probably wasn't going to be able to have children. So a lot of the story is he just doesn't think he's good enough for Danica. And Danica's Abby's best friend. So Abby's from book one, first book in the series. It's actually good. They're all A to E in their character names. So I can remember which A is the first book, B is the second book. I really like that. I actually can remember where I am. Yeah, and so the story opens with Danica is paired up with Darren at the baby shower. And that's for, trying to think it's who's having the baby shower. Can't remember, one of the characters in the family. And they're doing the toilet paper games and all these different things. And of course, a baby shower for Darren just pushes all his buttons. Sure. And these guys, they're very attracted to each other. And it's just, he just doesn't think that he's worthy of being in a relationship with her. And so it's just a very fun story. But it's got a lot of heart, and it's got a lot of emotional depth as well in terms of dealing with issues. And I really enjoyed that one. And she's a lovely bookish character.
Cool. I love it. I like the Spark Brothers. So yeah, that's a good pick for sure. All right. So my next one is, so actually, didn't we do you? We did you.
But I wanted to talk about the Spark Brothers.
Oh, talk about the Spark Brothers. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I picked must be the second one then. I'd forgotten about the alphabetical thing. So it's
yes.
the romance author.
Yes.
So
yes.
I'd forgotten about the fourth pair being the bookstore people, because it's been a while since I read these. But yeah, so there we've got a male romance author who is not hiding behind a pen name, but he's definitely hiding, right? Because he's so shy. It just cracked me up, because that part to me was typical of authors, to be introverted and not really love being in the limelight. So anyways, he runs into his old crush years after the fact and offers a marriage of convenience. So if you're looking for that kind of a book, then then you've got it with this very shy, very sweet author. And sorry, Beth, I went out of turn, but
okay, but you need to now give the title. I mean, we know it's a Spark Brother, but you need to give the actual
sudden
title.
spark.
Okay.
A Sudden Spark by Lynn Y. Ho.
Excellent. All right, so
you can go twice.
No, now we're going this way. My second one is technically a trilogy. It's all three of them. Sarah Monzon has a trilogy of novellas, Book Nerds and Boyfriends, Bookishly Ever After, and Literarily Ever After. Actually, maybe there's Book Nerds and Boyfriends is the series. So it's Bookishly Ever After, Literarily Ever After, and Novelly Upon a Time. And my favorite is the middle one. They're all really cute, but I really enjoyed Literarily Ever After. She's a literature professor, and her sister, it gets a little complicated here, but the sister of the main character. So you've got the literature professor, and of course I didn't write down any of the names, so I can't help us out that way. So you've got the lit professor sister it wants to be engaged. She's got this very serious boyfriend who is from a very snobby family. And as part of that, the sister has told them that her older sister is married. And she's spun this story trying to gain approval of her, hopefully to be in-laws. So they want to meet the sister and her husband. And so her sister is like, please, 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 you have to do this. And also, by the way, scare up some guy who can be your husband. And so she does find someone who is willing to do this pretend marriage with her for the weekend to try and help her sister out. And of course, sparks fly. So pretend becomes real. It's cute. And it was cute. It's almost fantastical. I mean, it doesn't seem to take itself too seriously, which I think when you're doing like a fake marriage, you almost have to have fun with it, because
especially in a novella.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
There's no room.
There's no room for taking yourself too seriously in great drama. It's just, they're fun. All three of the novellas are just fun and fast and flirty, and just couple hours of joy in each one.
Sounds good.
All right, Narelle, you're up.
Okay, well, my second one is Until I Met You by Terry Faris in the Restoring Heritage series. And I chose this one because Libby's new to town, and her brother, Luke, was in the first book in the series. And she's a librarian. And so she's got this new job, and she's got a lot of neuroses and all sorts of things going on as well. And this library that she's been given is just like a closet in this dusty old rundown building. And she's like, what have I done? What have I got myself into? This is just horrible. This just is not going to work as a library. And so the hero of the book, Austin, he is in his family has a construction company. So he's Nate's brother, and he's sort of in charge of doing the landscaping and redoing the town square of Heritage. And Libby comes across this building that would be perfect to be the new library in the town square, because, I mean, a library is I think we've probably really changed our conceptions of libraries. Like once upon a time, it was the quiet, solemn place where you really didn't talk much and everyone shushed you and you sat in a corner and you read a book and did all the, you know what I mean, did all the right things. Whereas now libraries, and where I am anyway, they're very much in the center of the community. They're often co-located with our year 11 and 12, so our high school, college level people, and they're places where groups go in and do meetings, and they're definitely not quiet. And so it's a place that you want to be light and bright and airy and engaging. And so this particular story is all about this library getting built in town. So it's a really lovely story, and I love how the library becomes a very central part of Heritage with the vision for how they're redoing the town as well. And it's a fun romance that goes along with it, because he's got issues with Nate being his pastor brother, and Nate seems to get a free pass on staff, and he's got issues in the family of his dad being in a care facility. And yeah, but it's a great story.
Yeah, this book was going to be on my list, except I went, Narelle's going to talk about it. It's true.
Yeah. No, I didn't put it on mine either, because I figured it would make Narelle's list also, but it's a really good book.
So Narelle, know that we're counting on you.
That's right. If there's a Terry Faris book, if there's a Terry Faris book that fits, you better mention it, because neither of us are going to touch it at this point. All right, Valerie, what's your third one?
Well, I'm going to give a plug to myself this time around with the Cowboys Romantic Dreamer.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with this one. Danae is a romance editor, and she figures that she has edited so many hundreds of romance novels by now that she knows exactly how the rhythm of romance is supposed to go. And so when she starts falling for this cowboy, she figures she knows what's going to happen, how it's all going to play out. And he has not heard of the story beats and the story arc and the way things should go. And he really does things his own way. And so I had a ton of fun with that because he just does not play by the rules. Of course, he kind of does in the end, because
it is a romance novel. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a ton of fun to go into that with an editor as opposed to an author, just because she's done hundreds and hundreds of them, right? As opposed to just having written maybe, 10 or 20. She really knows what they're supposed to be.
Excellent. That's a good one. I was worried you were going to steal mine, because my next one is Harvest of Love by Valerie Comer. And I love this one, not only because Kenya is just a really fun character, but because one of my Baxter brothers treated her badly. And so that sort of set the stage. It's not on purpose, but he really was trying. But it sort of set the stage for her to get her own love story. And she runs a bookstore, so I think she qualifies as bookish.
Yeah.
And I also loved the fact in this one that Zane struggles with literacy. And so it's really kind of like the worst possible person to fall in love with someone who adores reading is someone who finds reading a horrible, horrible chore. He has a form of dyslexia that has gone undiagnosed and untreated most of his life. And so he feels incredibly unworthy to love someone whose like major friend in the world is the written word. And so I think I love seeing the byplay between them, and just the growth of the characters. It's really kind of, it's kind of cool. So, and it's good she didn't end up with Jonah, even though.
Yes, it is good.
Even though we were sad at the time.
Even though Jonah likes to read. So it would have been, they would have had lots to talk about in the book world. But
but it just did not work out for them. So
sad.
Yeah, but yay for Zane. All right, we have time to go one more. if you've got one more. Narelle, do you got another one?
I do. So the next one I'm going to go with is Stay With Me by Becky Wade. And the heroine in this book is, whose name has gone straight out of my head. She's a Bible study celebrity author. So she was one of the original, what do they call them? The Miracle Six, sorry. I'm doing well, aren't I, with this book? So she was one of the Miracle Six. And when she was 12 years old, she was on a mission trip in El Salvador, and there was this massive earthquake. And the whole world was just focused on these children and teenagers that were stuck underground in this basement and trying to rescue them. So she sort of got thrown into the limelight at a very young age. And then after, in sort of her late teens, she was really looking to the Bible for answers and studying the Bible, and sort of found herself with this international celebrity platform as a Bible study author and speaking engagement. So, and with traditional publishing contracts. So really fully involved in the sort of bookish and publishing world.
Yeah.
And it was something that she probably never planned on happening, but she sort of thought, well, you know, it was kind of a bit of survivor guilt in terms of, well, God has done this massive thing by saving my life, and it's a miracle I'm here. Therefore, I have to do something big for God. And that's sort of where she starts. Now, the problem that she has, though, is that she had an ankle injury before this book opened, and she started taking painkillers, the OxyContin, and unfortunately liked the painkillers too much and had the predisposition to have an addiction. So she has this secret addiction to painkillers that she's desperate to hide from everybody. And she has a book deadline looming, and so she decides to go home and stay at her parents and secretly detox at her parents and get this book in, because she's really concerned she's not going to meet her publishing contract. But before she gets to her parents, she ends up sleeping in a cottage that she just randomly comes across a cottage and sleeps there. And the story opens with the hero.
As you do.
Yeah, because for a bunch of reasons, I won't go into too much, but the way the story opens, I've only got to the opening now, is that Sam's got this cottage on his farm outside of the town, and he sees this strange car, really nice looking luxury car out the front, and thinks, what's going on? Walks in, and there's this woman asleep on a mattress with clothes all over her as a blanket. He's like, this is odd. She's really well dressed, makeup, like she doesn't look like she's a homeless person at all. And he tries to wake her and find out who she is, and she just won't wake up. And he sort of, alarm bells ring and think this is a bit interesting. And he was looking obviously for her identity, and then discovers the pills. So I won't probably talk too much about the story. And I think it's for me, it was a very interesting read. It was very challenging. It's a deep story. It's not something that you sort of take as a light and breezy afternoon read, but I really did enjoy reading it and got frustrated at times. And I got very engaged with the story. It's probably the best way to describe it. And it's definitely worth reading if you read the opening and think this is for me.
Okay.
I agree. I found that one challenging to read as well. It was uncomfortable because I don't like to think about our Christian celebrities hiding big things, even though I know it happens. So it was like, can we not have like a really nice, sweet heroine who, but the other stories need telling too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
Do you have another one, Valerie?
Sure. I'll go with Forgiven by the Hero by Tara Grace Ericson, which I read just recently, because I think that you guys have been telling me, or Beth, you've been telling me to read these books for like a year and a half now or something. Anyways, I finally read some of them. So in this one, Megan Warren is holed up in Colorado to write because she's got a deadline. But she keeps running into the search dog trainer, Derek, who gets stranded in her cabin in a snowstorm so conveniently, and discovers her secret identity as a male thriller author. Mm-hmm. And so again, this is a pet peeve kind of thing with me, I guess, with the author stories, and yet it was a good story. Tara's a good author, and I enjoyed seeing the war going on inside of Megan as to whether or not she would let Derek know, because she knows that she, AKA her alter ego, is one of his favorite authors, but she's only told like 3 people in the world ever that this is the name she's writing under. So there's a big dilemma there, but stranded in a snowstorm and dogs. I mean, how can you go wrong, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think those hidden author identity stories I find really fun as well.
They can be,
I think they can be quite good.
Right. I don't actually have another one, and we're kind of on the edge for time, so it works out well.
Convenient, saved by the bell.
That's right. Closing thoughts on Bookish people. I mean, we probably, I cut myself off because I could have found many more if I'd looked, but I was like, I have 3, that should be enough. So we should narrow it down to something, I think, and do another episode or 2. Like we can do a full episode on librarians probably, or bookstore owners.
Give us time to read a few more books.
Yeah. Other final thoughts? No. All right. Let us know what you think. Tell us the ones we missed, because they're out there. All the books
and the categories we missed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us for sure. Leave a comment on the YouTube channel or on our Facebook page for Story Chats. You can find all the information that you need about the podcast at inspyromance.com/storychats. And we're glad you joined us. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And we'll see you next week. In the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.